you twice on the channel, Joe. Okay, do you pronounce it Perry?
It's
Paris.
Paris, like Paris,
That's
France.
what I thought. I said
Yeah.
Paris. I always say Paris. Then other people were saying Paris. I was like, wait, have I been saying it wrong this whole time?
No, it's okay. Like
Cool.
my
Right
own
on.
family like says it wrong sometimes too. Like,
Really?
yeah, like it's not a big deal. So I
All right.
appreciate being on though, man. It's good to come back together here. It's been a while since we did a stream, and a lot's happened since then. So grateful
To
to be
say the
back
least.
on. The sun is shining, and
Mhm.
life is good. So thanks
Love to
again for
hear it,
having me.
man. Yeah, dude, my pleasure. I love to hear that the sun is shining. It looks beautiful where you're at. I don't know if you disclose where you are, but no, yeah, really beautiful
Well,
spot.
we'll have the commenters comment down below just
Right.
to drive a little engagement. Where am I? The sun is shining, the palm trees in the background. Make your guesses down below.
Nice. But yeah, we streamed. I can't even remember the first time we streamed. It was I know it was last year, but it was not as much was going on, right? It was just Hex, the price chart. I think we were talking about like, yeah, this thing could hit 20 cents or something, and that was like our tippy top projection or something. And now that's like we've been going flat there, and now that's like the bottom now, so to speak, right? Like obviously we don't know what's gonna happen, but pretty cool to see. A lot happened. Yeah, we ran up to like 56 cents, then dip, and ran up to 36 cents, dip, and now we have a lot more to talk about. I think we touched on Pulse Chain in the second video we did a little bit, that sacrifice phase, but we haven't talked about PulseX at all. So that'll be a good new shiny object to talk about. But let's see what the guesses here are. Fort Lauderdale, says someone. Puerto Rico, says someone. Florida, someone else. Good guesses. Good guesses.
Somebody's right. Out of those three, somebody is right. We'll leave it at that. We'll have some fun with it. But no, I mean, when we first met, man, Hex was, I think we were just starting with the Pulse sacrifice
Right.
because we were talking about a lot of TA, and we're going to lead off here. Well, maybe do a little TA of Hex right now because I know a lot of people are looking at the market today. It's a little bit red. Hex is a little bit red. Is this an opportunity? And that's kind of where we started. And then I think we'll go through the stream. We'll go talk a little bit about Pulse Chain, and then we'll talk about PulseX. And the TA, man, is really, really awesome. And we were able to combine some of the TA and the game theory stuff. And I'll definitely be sharing more about my feelings towards all three of the projects. And, a big shout out to Richard. And, he did reach out to me a few times, but we could use some help with this community because he reached out a few times and we weren't able to nail down a time to stream. So if you guys are interested in seeing us stream together, tag Richard on Twitter, tag him on Instagram, tag him like crazy, tag the both of us, and hopefully we can get that together and maybe have all three of us together. I think that'd be an awesome stream. So if you guys are interested in that, check it out and tweet at Richard Hart and see if we can make it happen.
Give him some pressure because, like, bro, the hardest part about streaming is scheduling, especially when like everyone's all over the world. Like, right, I'm somewhere different in the world than you are. It's a matter of just like what time zone are you on, and just like we're obviously busy people. We're all busy people. But yeah, guys, go tweet at him because Richard has shown interest in streaming with you, and I think that'd be a great stream. I really do. And you have sort of a different audience. Obviously, you blew up on like TikTok. Like I'm looking at your TikTok. You blew up and like I think you're over 1 million there. That funneled over really nicely into your YouTube, your Instagram, the rest of your socials, even your Twitter. So like you bring a different audience because he's not on TikTok. I'm not even on TikTok. I should be. I really should be. That's a phenomenal top of the funnel. Like it's a beast for traffic. It's just a different algorithm. Like no, it's good. But yeah, tweet at Richard and we'll get that live stream going. Yeah, bro, let's talk about Hex. I can share my screen if you like. I have a chart pulled up
Yeah.
on there.
Share your screen. Let's look at the current price action of Hex right now. Today is February the 17th, and what's going on, man? We're holding that line there as support. We're kind of breaking it at the moment. Any cause for concern, or what are we looking at in the medium short term here for people in case they're new to Hex and they just got in and they have no idea what's going to happen?
Yeah. So, for those who've never seen the Hex price chart in its full glory, this is the V1 chart. You can find it on uniswap.hex.vision. And this shows the price history from December of 2019 all the way to today. And this is the chart that shows the 10,000x that everyone talks about. You can do a measured move from this bottom to here, and it's 10,000x. But as to what's happening in the short term, for those who are kind of scared, well, price has dipped many, many times before. As you can see here, it's been like, I think I counted 11 or 12, but this first post-launch dip, and then this dip after a run-up, this prolonged dip that took months for it to break into new all-time highs, the infamous big payday dip, 86.47% drop, nastiest drop in Hex's history. Few dips here and there, 40, 50% ish. The Pulse chain sacrifice dip, and then the recent longest dip in Hex's history, which brought it down from 56 cents to about like 11.8 cents. That was 80%, an 80% drop. Cryptos do this often, actually. Most cryptos do that, and some even dip harder. Like Ethereum dipped 95% back in the day. Hex has never dipped 95% ever since it had a legitimate market on Uniswap. And yeah, we're currently sitting at like 18, 19 cents, depending on whether you're looking at V2 or V1. V2 has more liquidity, which is this one. So this one shows you recent price action better. The other one's mainly for like long-term price history. But we're on the 300-day moving average that you mentioned. This is, I mean, historically speaking, back here during that December dip, we did dip beneath it. So when you were saying like, yeah, it looks like we're potentially breaking it a little bit, this period of time closed 4 full daily candle bodies beneath it, and then it just 3x from there, 200% gains. And then even during this little chop on it, we had like a little, like 30% rally, and we're currently on it. So I think the price looks like it's coiling. It looks like it wants to do something, in my opinion. But to your point, we've been here before. For those who are scared, not only Hex, but all cryptos dip 80% quite often. So
Yeah, and I mean, if you just take a, we started with that macro chart. If you just take a look at Hex, and something to just kind of chime in here with the new people, and just look at the price action, what you're really looking for is what is happening like overall, right? You can see in the chart that it is going up and to the right. And I know a lot of Hexicans say that, it always goes up and to the right. And I think at some point here, there's a couple of people mentioning that you can start to, if you have enough T shares, if you got in early enough, people are starting to like live off of interest with T shares, which is really pretty interesting to me because I don't know what's going to happen with Hex in the future. Nobody knows for sure. But if you really study it and you really understand the mechanics behind it, this is where you can start to see this is an asset that people kind of like, what's his name? Michael Saylor says about Bitcoin. He never wants to sell it. Why? Because it just keeps generating and it keeps outpacing everything else. So why would you want to get rid of an asset that keeps outperforming every other asset? You wouldn't want to do that logically. And with Hex, the amazing thing is let's say your principal is 1,000,000 Hex, right? And so you stake that every week and you get 10 T shares per se. Well, you can just keep restaking your principal and then selling your interest. And if that gets high enough in the future, I mean, you can start living off of that. And so that's the really exciting thing to me, and a little game theory for people that they maybe have missed. And then also it's like, well, then yeah, I mean, you're just looking to accumulate all at some point. And this potentially, according to the chart and what we've kind of looked at, might be a decent time to accumulate. Is that kind of what we're seeing here? Or like you said, it can kind of go one way or another. What's the bullish scenario and what's the bearish one?
Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned a lot of good points, especially on the yield aspect. Like you mentioned, Sailor. I'm pretty sure he's a fan of like never selling his Bitcoin, because I think one of his theses is like you can borrow against it as well, so you would never actually have to sell it, and that assumes either a constant like appreciation in the long term, depending on your situation. But no, it's huge. A lot of people are living off the trustless yield that is the Hex contract, which is amazing. And yeah, the T-share rate in Hex terms just goes up over time because it's denominated in two things that the contract itself created, T-shares and Hex. So that rate can and does just go up over time. But I guess if you zoom out, not only to this, let me zoom out actually to the blue chips, ETH and BTC. We all know ETH and BTC, right? And this is a shameless shill here, LookIntoHex.com, where I show ROI from launch of ETH, BTC, and HEX. So BTC, obviously the longest running, the blue curve here on the chart. We have Ethereum in green, and we have HEX in pink. HEX, the youngest one, the one who's absolutely just crushing the game right here. You can see it's outperforming the historic runs of ETH and BTC. And so I guess bull case, best case scenario is, it just continues on this trajectory and continues outperforming Ethereum's and Bitcoin's historical runs. And, we talk about 10,000x. Yeah, it's awesome. But Bitcoin at this point up here, ROI from launch was like 200,000x. And then if you measure from the bottom, it's more. But the recent 65, 69K top ROI just from launch is almost 1,000,000x. If you actually measure from the bottom, it's almost 7,000,000x. So best case scenario long term is HEX just keeps going, right? $1, $10, $100 over time and mimic what Bitcoin did. In terms of kind of shorter term, I guess, well, we've never seen HEX be beneath all-time highs for more than 6 months. And currently we're sitting at, actually I haven't done the math on this in a minute. Let's do it on stream here, on stream math, everyone's favorite. About 5 months. Yeah, it's been about 5 months since HEX has seen an all-time high. So kind of zooming a little back in from the whole HEX ETH BTC chart, 56 cents was our all-time high. So if your premise is that it will return to all-time highs, well, you can get 3x the amount of HEX now than you would at that breakout level, I guess. So yeah, we're about 67% down from all-time highs. And you see people like arguing like, oh, well, BTC is not down that much from all-time highs, but you also have to consider how much they ran. This ROI from launch chart, sometimes I call it a left aligned chart because everything syncs up at the left, right? Starts from the same point. But you can also do a right aligned chart where everything syncs up in real chronological time. And this is ROI since HEX launch, which is from December of 2019. This better illustrates the performance this cycle. So what I was getting at, like people say, oh, HEX is down 67% from all-time high. Yeah, but look how it performed this cycle. It's up 400x from since its launch on this chart, right? And what's really interesting here is that the March capitulation of 2020 kind of brought everything to the same level here, as you can tell, pretty much. And then from there, you can really see, okay, like this is where the cycle started, you could argue. This is where this current cycle started. And as I said earlier, HEX is up 400x, Ethereum's up 22x, and Bitcoin is up 6x. So if you had converted your BTC to HEX at the beginning there, you could have whatever 400 over 6 is, like almost 70 times the Bitcoin and almost 20 times the Ethereum. So this is, yeah, I mean, so many charts, you just see it outperform. But I guess worst case scenario, I mean, anything can flash crash, right? 80, 90%, we've seen it, multiple charts. But the biggest dip HEX has ever had, like I mentioned, on a market is 86%, which I think from the tippy top puts it at like, it was like, I think I did the math, it was like 6 to 10 cents. But you already know when Bitcoin hit 4K back years ago, everyone was calling for $1,000. And even during this dip here, when HEX hit 12 cents, everyone was calling for 10 cents. Everyone was calling for 6 cents. And now we see things like, if you go to Uniswap info, you see like there's a huge buy wall sitting on Uniswap V3 of like $20 million worth of bids sitting from like 6 cents all the way to 18 cents. So do I think it could go that low? Anything can happen, but it looks like it's coiling up and wants to do the opposite, basically. It looks like it wants to go up, in my humble opinion, right? What'd I do? Forward. Got the Google logo. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. I mean, look, one of the things that I'll share that when we talked about HEX last time, going through the Pulse sacrifice, something very similar happened. I remember this because I was really focused on HEX. What happened was we had this run up to new all-time high for the first 5 days, I think is what the pulse was. There was only like 5 days that you could get in that window and get the zero. And then it went from 17 cents all the way back down to like 11 or 10 cents. And I remember thinking to myself, man, this is just here, it's going to go down to 5 cents again. Like, this is just a bummer, like, blah, blah, blah. I remember that feeling, but I just kept buying it. I was just like, I'm just going to keep buying this. Like, I don't know what else is going to do better. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm going to keep buying this. And I just wanted to accumulate more of it. Then we had that massive rally. So it literally, after the sacrifice phase of Pulse, had that crazy 10x rally from about 11 to 10 cents to that 50 cents. And that was kind of unexpected to me. I didn't think it was going to go to 50 cents. I'm going to be honest. I did not think it was going to go that high. Right around the 30-cent mark, when I remember looking at the chart, it was like 30, 35 cents. I'm like, all right, it's probably time to take some off the table. Like, that was my thing. I was like, it's probably time to, like, this went like up, like it looked like a hockey stick a little bit. So I'm like, this might be a time to take some off. And so, but then it did another leg. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like, I was sitting there just like, this is unbelievable. And then it finally kind of did that nice little double or triple top there at the 50-cent mark. And then there were some indicators that we were kind of running out of steam there. And so what I've learned through this asset is that there is an opportunity. Like, this is one that's a different type of crypto. When it runs, it can run. And that's because of the liquidity. And there's a lot of other factors that go into it. But when it runs, it can run and look out. And then Richard said something too, which I thought was really helpful. And this is why I've had such conviction holding this cryptocurrency for so long, is because there was a time where it ran up like crazy. Like, I think it was a year or two ago. And then it never revisited those levels. People are used to, Bitcoin going to 69,000, but then it retraced all the way back down to 30,000, 33,000. We're used to getting these big run-ups, but then also these corrections. With HEX, if you see those green candles back there, we had that massive run-up, and we never went back to those levels again. And so, are we due for another leg like that? I kind of have a feeling that it has potential. Now, the only thing that concerns me a little bit with that is when you start hitting 50 cents and $1 mark, I think there's going to be massive resistance for this. And so if you are newer, I would recommend studying this project, learning how it works. And also, I'm really excited for, let's call it, I know it's going to be the new HEX, but let's call it PHEX.
Sure.
I am so excited to pay literally nothing to stake and also do this ladder, because there's this amazing game theory. There was a video put out, I think it's on the website hex.com, about staking ladders and how if you execute that properly, it's like building this apple orchard and you're able to get the fruit of the apple like pretty instantaneously, but then also really reap the rewards of it down the line. So you have this like 15-year apple that's just like ripe and crisp, but you're also you get to like double dip here almost, right? You get to have some of your apples and save some of them for later. And so that, to me, that game theory really attracted me to this asset, and the fact that you earn interest as high as you do. And the other kicker to this is it just keeps appreciating in value. A lot of other coins like Pancake Swap, Uniswap, right? Some of those of the yield farming coins, what happens? They have run-ups and they just dump like crazy because people just earn the yield. It's too high, and then they just sell them like crazy. There's this perfect balance, I believe, here with HEX. And like we said, anything can happen. This thing can crash down to 6 cents. We could all be wrong. It could go back down to 2 cents. It's always a possibility. But over the 2 years here that this asset has been, in the game, we've seen nothing but accumulation phases, right? We see that massive one there. After that massive leg up, we see a nice, right in there. Accumulation phase, run up. And it looks to me like we're in, like you said, another accumulation phase. And that next leg up could really be something special. And we will see what will happen. But maybe we shift on to if anybody has any Q&A in the chat for HEX, and then we can get into Pulse and PulseX and go from there.
Yeah. So it is important to highlight the fact that these things do flash crash and can dip, and we could all be, everyone who's bullish could be completely wrong. But it's also fair and necessary to point out what you pointed out, that these things can run just like in an instant. Hex, I mean, just look at it, right? Like no one expected one person with one order to double the price in a single candle, and then we never revisited it, like you mentioned. And then obviously you have this long reaccumulation phase, similar over here. This green curve is the 50-week moving average, by the way. So we've never actually closed candles beneath it, which is the reason I have it here. It's sitting at 17.3 cents, little alpha for you guys. And I guess I could leak a little more alpha for you guys, but the 2020 run, you could argue it started in December of 2019 right here. Then we had this nice 100x, then basically went sideways for the entire year. And then if you look here, you could argue this run started roughly around the same time, November, December. And then we had another nice little 200x basically. Then a reaccumulation sideways for a long time again. And look at that bottom, December. So you see like these yearly cycles. I'd argue it's on a faster cycle than ETH and BTC. Like not only do we run harder, we run faster, but we actually dip more often than them. Like I think Hex has had more 60+% dips just in its short lifetime than like Bitcoin has had in its entire lifetime. There was a number, I think it was like 60 or 70%, I can't remember. But to your point, it looks like reaccumulation. The indicator here, the RSI looks pretty good. All right, we came back down to these levels that we'd only tested at local bottoms, and that level is on the weekly RSI at about 45-ish. We went as low as 44, currently sitting at like 47. And there are other risk metrics as well that show, this thing has cooled off. And if there was any time for it to have a massive run up, I'd probably be, it'd probably look something like what it looks like now. But yeah, let's get to the chat, some Hex stuff, and then yeah, like you said, we can talk about Pulse and PulseX. Let's see. Good morning from New Zealand. What's up? Roundhouse kick the like button. Nice.
Yeah, and if we, while you're kind of digging through a couple of questions there, just one other thing to mention, if we take a look at Hex and we look at all the Hex that has been sacrificed, we just had the God whale staked for 15 years, like hundreds of millions of Hex, I think it was something crazy. And the average length now is 6.5 years. I think the message I really want to share with people now more than ever, because I know that things have been pretty uncertain, is patience, right? And Hex really is designed to delay gratification. That's something that people have a very difficult time with, especially in crypto, because I talked about a coin a couple of days ago. It literally has done a 20x from the pre-sale price in 2 days. So people see that and they're like, well, where is that for me? Right? Like, where is that? Like, why can't I find those? And it's like, that does exist in crypto. Don't get me wrong. Like, it absolutely does. But it's more of winning the lottery kind of mentality. I think too many people have this mentality of, oh, I'm going to get my 100x and I'm going to get rich and drive the Lambo, rather than just, well, if you would have just bought Hex at 6 cents and have been patient for the next like 2 or 3 years, you could have bought 3 or 5 Lambos. You know what I mean?
There you go.
And so I think that, and you can play both sides here. You don't have to put all your money into Hex, right? And this is not financial advice. You need to do your research, of course. But what we're sharing here is an opportunity, and just what's really important more than the crypto itself is your understanding of it and the mentality. Because and I tell this to people on my YouTube channel all the time, I can talk about all these cryptos. I think Bitcoin and Ethereum and a lot of them are fantastic, but timing is everything. It really, truly is. If you would have bought Hex at 50 cents, like, you're just going to have to wait a lot longer. You know what I mean? Like, I think it could go back there, and maybe it never does, and we're wrong. But timing is very, very important in this game. And if you do make a mistake with timing, then time in the market, as most people say, could potentially bail you out. But mentality here, patience. I know it's hard, but when you're staking and you're actually, getting rewards for doing that and delaying that gratification, from our experience now being in Hex for over a year, man, has it paid off. And even when it was like, man, I should have sold all my Hex at 50 cents. What was I thinking? It's like, Well, sure. Of course, if you had a crystal ball and you knew that that was going to be that top for the next 5 months, you would have. But nobody knows that for sure. And so that's where I really just wanted to get this out there to people that patience and this crypto has been, knock on wood, as flawless as any other crypto can be.
Mhm.
And that's really something too when you're looking at investing. Is there a hack? Is there a bug? Is there, something where you're giving up your cryptocurrency and you don't own the keys? I mean, everything about Hex, if you really study it, it's why when people ask me about it and they don't know much about it, they're like, "Yeah, I just think it's a scam and this stuff." I'm just like, man, dude, if you got to really look at this one. You got to really get down to it. But yeah, let's get to some of those questions if you got a few.
Yeah, yeah, it does take some studying. Like the design is brilliant. Like the share system, the it's even a gas efficient contract. Even the fact that coins are burned when they're staked is important, and a lot of people don't touch on this. But you don't have a contract with just a bunch of hex sitting in it, right? There's no honeypot for like hackers to like constantly be looking at, because you stake your hex, it just stops existing. There's nothing to steal there. But no, yeah, let's get to some questions here. I saw someone say here in the chat that you're on BitBoy streams often. Mention probably Hex at times.
Yeah, so
I didn't know that.
yeah, so I'm on
Mhm.
around the blockchain quite frequently. And
Nice,
yes,
nice.
I have I've talked about one of the coins they asked me about. I did talk about PulseX and I did talk about
Yeah.
Pulse. I haven't mentioned Hex much. It's a it's a little controversial, right? And so look, I'm very outspoken about it on my channel. I talk about it all the time
Yeah.
there. And I'll definitely, when I'm on somebody else's platform and somebody else's channel, I'm going to be mindful and respectful of that,
Mhm.
right? Because that's just the right thing to do in my
Right, right.
opinion. And I know how there's when you got millions of people following you, you want to kind of keep it as much as middle of the road as you can. But if there is
Sure.
an opportunity for me to say, hey, look, take a look at this, and it's kind of yeah, of course, like I'm going to be open and honest about my opinions as always, but also too, I'm not just going to shill Hex in the middle of their stream. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that's just not a good look.
yeah. Yeah, if you got me on there, I'd be pulling up my looking Hex charts. They'd hate me. Um, Someone asked, how can you add liquidity to that chart you have on screen? Interesting question. I've never seen any like liquidity metric overlaid in TradingView. That's really cool. I'd love to see that. You can see liquidity on uniswap.info because Hex is primarily traded on decentralized exchanges, namely Uniswap V2 and V3. V3 is actually eating up the liquidity a little more. I think it's definitely more than 50% now. And you can see on uniswap.info, you just type in Hex, you look at it's either TVL. Yeah, it's TVL. And that's your total value locked. It's essentially the liquidity. And there's even a chart showing it over time. But yeah, I don't know about overlaying it here, but you can definitely see it separately over there. Let's see what other question we have. Someone's asking which is more bullish, PulseX or Pulse Chain? Hard to tell, right? Neither of them exist yet. They're both created by the same founder. They're different coins. It's like asking what's more bullish, BNB or Cake, like the native token or the premier yield farming token. You don't know, right? They scale differently. But what's your take on this? Which do you have a favorite? Or
Yeah, I mean, I went a little bit, it's really interesting because people,
yeah,
when people are asking this question, what they're really asking is, which one should I get to make the most gains,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because, that's what we're all here for, right? Like, if we're being honest with ourselves, we're here for the gains, and everything else in between and the community and everything else is just kind of a side effect of that. And look, maybe there's exceptions to that. Like, don't take it for what it is. But if you're asking that kind of question, um, we can say our opinions on it, but the truth of the matter is like we won't know until the market decides, right? Like the
Right.
market is going to decide which one they want more of. I'm going to think, just thinking out loud, of course, this is my own opinions, that a lot of people went heavier into Pulse X, and I think initially they're going to trade some of that for Pulse. And so I think that initially there's going to be a really fun game being played between these two coins, and it's going to be really interesting to see. Um, it really is going to depend upon supply, demand, what you can do with these, right? If PulseX gives you an amazing, new yield token, there's a potential
Mhm.
DAO token, right? Maybe
Mhm.
you want to hold that token because you want to be involved with the DAO community and have some voting rights and earn some of those tokens, right? Or maybe you just think that Pulse is going to be the next bigger, better Ethereum, and you want to accumulate as much of that as possible, and you want to stake it and earn yield that way. There is no for sure like, hey, this one's going to be better than this one until the market decides that. And so what I'm getting at, though, to answer the question is when what you can do is just own a little bit of everything, right? If I look back at my own personal investment journey with cryptocurrency, one of the biggest mistakes that I made very early is I focused on one crypto and that's all I did. I didn't buy anything else. I did not diversify. That was a massive mistake. Now, the
Mhm.
flip side of that is diversifying too much, where you buy $10 worth of every coin out there. That's not going to be very productive either. And so
Right.
this is where doing your research and coming to the streams like you're watching here today, understanding, learning from experts who have done a lot of this, who have been in the trenches, who have seen this before, can say to you, hey, look, maybe it's a better, a good idea to own some of both because you do not know, and we do not know which one's going to perform better. And so that's where my take on this is why not own a little bit of both of them and then just see what happens and you'll be happy from there because we don't know enough information yet. It's kind of like if you're playing poker, right? And all we know is our first two cards. And they're pretty
Mm.
good cards, you know what I mean? But we don't know what's going to come on the flop. We don't know what's going to come on the
Mhm.
turn. We don't know what's going to come on the river, right? And so we only have a bit of information. So when
Yep.
you don't want to just go all in on, unless they're aces, then yeah, sure. You go all in with those. I'm making a poker analogy here, but you don't want to just put all your chips to the middle on two cards because anything can happen even if you do got aces there. But if at the end of the five cards, right, you got all this information and you can make a better educated decision, that's where maybe putting more in is a right decision. And so hopefully that kind of helps answer that question. And of course, not financial advice as always, but yeah, I think that might be a good helpful hint for people.
A perfect answer, man. And yeah, those different cards that we don't have yet that you mentioned could be the initial liquidity, the initial ratio that's set because the first trade that happens, actually the first person who even creates a liquidity pool in PulseX for PHEX, PLS, PHEX wrapped USDC or Pulse wrapped USDC, Pulse dot, like whatever. Like though we don't know what those initial ratios are going to be. We don't know what the initial liquidity amount is going to be. We don't know. We don't even know like what the incentive token. It doesn't even have a name yet. The incentive token, which is going to be, you can single asset stake your PulseX, your PLSX, and you get this other token, which I think is a cool dynamic because in contrast to HEX, where you stake HEX and you get HEX, you'll be able to stake PLSX and get something else. So I think that's a cool little dynamic where it doesn't hurt the price of PLSX to stake it. But yeah, no, to your point, like we don't know, the market will decide, and just patience goes a long way in these markets, a long, long way. And in life, not to get too like, you know, go down that road, but personal development, that's all it is just delayed gratification. I'm sure you didn't become a millionaire overnight. I'm sure your YouTube channel didn't get to what it is now. Your TikTok, that didn't happen overnight. I see you busting out content every single day. So it's like patience goes a long way in these markets, you guys.
And yeah, one more thing to just add in on this
Yes.
question is, you know, you got to really, first off, you should never risk more than you can ever afford to lose. I see too
Mhm.
many people making that mistake. And
Right.
I see it because they ask questions on projects. What do you think about this project? Is it ever going to come back? Is this one ever going to do better? Is it ever going to
Mm,
go back up again? It's like, well, you probably over invested in that project, right?
mhm,
And the other kicker to getting really and being really successful with crypto, if you want to have as close as that, 5 or 10x, 50x, 100x gain overnight, they can happen. You got to get in early. And so if you missed Pulse and Pulse X, maybe this Dow coin, another sacrifice will be another opportunity for you, right? And the sacrifice phase for Pulse X is still going on. Now it's a lot more expensive now, but
mhm.
what I really emphasize on to people, and it's so important. Like I said earlier, timing is absolutely critical. Getting in early and then never risking more than you can afford to lose, because there's some cryptocurrencies now that I have, it's all pure profit, like literally pure profit. And this takes all the anxiety and stress away because you can afford to be patient then. You're in no rush to sell these assets or do anything with them because, well, first off, you shouldn't hopefully need the money because you shouldn't be risking more than you should ever afford to lose. But then also, you're going to get away from this quick get rich quick mentality. And I think a lot of people really still focus on that. And yeah, hopefully that
Most
kind of helps
definitely.
overall.
Yeah, well said, man. Someone asking a next question saying, do you guys think the OA is gonna come into the PLS sacrifice on the last few hours like they did with the PLS sac? I mean, no one knows, but yeah, I mean, if it wants to, right, it could take a bunch of the PLSX supply by sacrificing a ton of its hex, and that doesn't hurt the hex price because it's just a simple transfer. And we've seen that the Pulse chain sacrifice address has never sold a single hex, and yeah, who knows? It can do whatever it wants.
Yeah,
But
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it did again, and I actually would kind of like it. I know a lot of people, they have this fear, and Richard has debunked it a million times,
yeah.
but it's like the OA address now, or this one address has all the coins.
Mhm.
Yeah, but like that address hasn't sold anything ever. So like that's not a bad thing. It just took a ton of supply off of the market. And, again, we don't know what will happen in the future, right? But if you take a look at, Jeff Bezos with Amazon and,
Mm.
Elon Musk with Tesla, have they sold? Yes, they had to for, tax purposes and whatnot, but they're not incentivized to destroy their own companies, right? And so whoever the OA is, I don't think they're incentivized to get all the supply and then just sell it all for nothing. Like that's typically, not how this goes. But again, anything can happen. And yeah, it's an interesting question, but I wouldn't
Yeah.
be surprised if it did.
It's incentive alignment at the end of the day. It's like, well, you own 50% of or more of the supply of a token. And again, Richard has explained it in a way that actually kind of blew my mind. He was like, but it makes perfect sense. He was like, do you get more as a majority owner by going from owning 50% of the supply to owning 75%, or just growing the pie itself? Like if you own 50% of all of Hex and Hex are worth 20 cents, well, you want to see Hex go to $1,000 because then you own 50% of something way, way, way bigger. So the incentive to hold is there, the precedent, the data is there that it has done that. So it's like any logical person who does do their research, studies a little bit, can see that incentive alignment, and that's what humans behave on, is incentives at the end of the day. So I think it might, right? It might sacrifice. The OA might come into the PulseX sacrifice, chuck in a ton of hex, but centralized ownership is not a bad thing. You gave some great examples with Amazon and Tesla, and just it wouldn't be a bad thing. Do we have any more questions? Do you think Pulse will par with Ethereum numbers? I don't see why not. I mean, Hex did a 10,000x, Ethereum did a 10,000x. Sure.
Well, I think that, if you look at Pulse versus Ethereum, right? What we are really speculating on, this is important to understand. You're trying to compare two different projects here. And yes, they're going to have a lot of similarities, but they're also going to have differences. And one of the major differences is the community, right? And also you're getting in super early to a new project like this. And so
Mhm.
the key here is you have the community and Richard, right? Like people will be Hexicans and for life because they really just enjoy the community. I see so many people on Twitter, following each other and just being a part of this Hex thing, right? And so I think Pulse could outperform Ethereum or many of the other cryptocurrencies because if it's better, cheaper, faster, that right there, a better user experience is going to be better. But
Mhm.
also too, it's about the community. That's one thing that if you look at a lot of these crypto projects that, yeah, they'll fluctuate up and down, but the ones that really, really last, They have community and a very engaged, loyal, dedicated community. And that's something too with I've learned with social media is, you can get a viral video and some people do that, but can you get consistent numbers? Can your numbers be overall pretty consistent? And it's difficult. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's very difficult to do, but that's kind of the difference between people who are just social media, whatever, the people who can really make an impact and influence people. And Richard's doing quite a job of that. His numbers have been very, very good, and yeah, so I have a lot of faith in the projects coming forward.
Community's growing too. And that's important, right? His socials are exploding. All of the Hexkin socials are exploding. Like it's really cool to see the support, the community, and that's where the value is. It's in the people, right? So some food for thought there. This is a good question. If you bridge Hex to EHEX, if you bridge Hex to EHEX on Pulse, does it become Hex on Pulse, PHEX, or does it remain a bridge derivative of Hex on Ethereum? It remains a bridge to derivative. So I think what they're getting at is like if you have Hex on as an ERC20, like as it currently exists, and you bridge it into Pulse chain, no, it doesn't become PHEX. It just becomes, I guess you could call it wrapped EHEX, WeHEX, someone's saying in the chat. Yeah, you could call it that, because reason it's important to distinguish is because you can't stake a wrapped token, because the contract is going to be exactly the same code, nothing's changing, not even one line of code is changing, just perfect copy. And it only accepts the Hex contract address to know that it's Hex. And you know that whenever you wrap a token, it becomes a completely new contract address. So it'll be like, what's this? This isn't Hex. So it will be a sort of derivative play on it, which is cool because like you could be able to speculate on the EHEX price on the Pulse chain, which is pretty cool with that wrapped EHEX, if you want to call it that. But yeah, just to your point, it doesn't become PX. There will be a native ERC20, well, there is a native ERC20 hex that exists now. There will be a native PRC20 hex on Pulse chain that will be identical. And anything wrapped from one chain to the other is just a bridged derivative. It's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great answer too. I mean, honestly, all I'll say is it's gonna be interesting to see how the value migrates over to the Pulse chain, right? There's gonna be a lot of nuances and learning for everyone. And yeah, it's a good question, and you answered it well.
Thanks, man. We got Cause D with a $20 super chat. I appreciate it. They're saying the double mic look is fantastic. Thanks. Thank you for the super chat. Let's see another question. Just scrolling, looking for question marks.
That's cool. I mean, we can just start migrating into PulseX if we want to start talking about that.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do that. So the sacrifice phase is coming to an end, and there's a couple of nuances that you did a really good job with Pulse kind of sharing with people, and maybe you have even a graph on LookIntoHex. What's going to happen here in these next couple of days? Because Richard said on his stream yesterday, hey, there's 4 days left before you get this volume multiplier bonus, and then it's set at a certain rate. A lot of people have a lot of questions with that. What is exactly going to happen there? And it kind of happened very similarly to the Pulse sacrifice, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. So there are these things called bonding curves.
Yeah, maybe you can bring up the website too. That'd be helpful as a tool to kind of show where we're at with it right now, like PulseX.com or something.
Definitely. Let's pull this up, PulseX.com. A bonding curve basically just means the rate is either changing with time or your rate changes based on size of the sacrifice. So let me pull this up, share my screen. Boom. There we go. Zoom in a little bit. So this is what the PulseX bonding curve looks like. It's basically identical to the Pulse chain bonding curve with a few key differences. The Pulse chain bonding curve was flat, basically 10,000 points per US dollar equivalent. It was flat for 5 days or so, and then it started curving up. Whereas the PulseX one was flat for a little longer, not 5 days, but rather like 12, 13 days. And then it started curving up at the same rate. It essentially means that at the beginning, you were getting 10,000 points per US dollar equivalent. during this flat period, and then you start getting less and less and less because this reflects price and a rate, right? A rate in a way, to where you see here, this is when you are paying $2 for 10,000 sacrifice points, then you're paying $3, $4, and it curves up. This is an exponential curve. So it definitely incentivizes early people to get in. That's the whole reason for a time bonding curve. Now, what you were mentioning touches on the volume bonding curve, and it's not shown in this chart. What the volume bonding curve means, it's just a fancy way of saying bulk discount. Oh, much better. It's a fancy way of saying a bulk discount. I explained it earlier on stream. I was kind of proud of how I explained it. It's really simple, right? Simple explanations are the best. Where if you, let's say you're just buying one apple and that apple costs you $1. Well, there's a guy that comes in and wants to buy 10,000 apples. He's going to get a better rate. He's going to get a bulk discount. And the numbers, the way they work out is he would get the apples at 40 cents each. And that's a 2.5x volume bonus. It's just, right, 2.5x cheaper because he got more. So this incentivizes people to not only, the time bonding curve incentivizes people to get in early, and the volume bonding curve incentivizes people to get in big. So as we were touching on earlier, just incentive alignment, so important. And so what happens in how many days? On the 21st, when the day ticks over, February 21st, is when that volume phase where people can get, more per dollar if they sacrifice more, that will come to an end, right? The bulk discount comes to an end February 21st. And after February 21st, everyone will get the same rate, and it will be, everyone will get a flat volume bonus of 1.75x, which, but keep in mind, like the time bonding curve is still ramping up. So it'll basically bring you back maybe to like this area. I'll show you guys actually.
Yeah, and
yeah,
you did a really good job. I just wanted to explain one thing here for people who are kind of maybe a little confused about this.
Sure.
Your example of buying in bulk with the apples is absolutely perfect. But what's going to happen in the next few days is if you're not a massive whale sacrificing, because the massive whales sacrifice like $40 to $20 million. If you're not going to be that person that's going to be in that top maybe 10 to 100 to where you could receive that volume multiple bonus of more than 1.75, it would actually be more beneficial to wait the next couple of days because you're going to be getting a flatter rate. It's going to be consistent. And then you're not going to be paying as much per sacrifice point. So if you can maybe explain that in simplicity terms for people as well, that'd be super helpful.
Yeah, I had a chart, but when I updated the site, redirected the domain, that chart, even though it was like an Easter egg, you could find it with the domain. It's not there anymore. But it basically explained visually exactly what you're saying. So currently, if you are, let's say you're a whale, and let's say you were going to get like a 2.3x, 2.4x bonus just because you have like a huge stack you want to sacrifice, then you're incentivized to not wait until it goes to 1.75x. So basically what I'm saying is if you were going to get more than a 1.75x bonus multiplier because you're a whale, then you're better participating during the volume phase.
Yeah,
which ends on the 21st.
Let's go to pulselead.xyz or whatever it is, and let's see where that would be for people. Let's just give them a visual for that, because I think that's really important to see. And this is only counting Ethereum and Binance transactions. But if we can show them like, hey, look, if you're not going to sacrifice like $1 million, then it might be more beneficial for you to wait for the next couple of days, because that bonding curve, or the we were talking about earlier, it's going up fast. And you can look at, it's like $2, $3, $4, $5, $6, $7 a point, or for 10,000 points. You got to really be paying attention to the details here. Obviously, the best time would have been when we were talking about this over, I think, a month or two ago, when those first 10 to 15 days were.
Oh, yeah.
That's why it's so important to smash the like button, click the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell, right? Because we are here giving you time-sensitive alerts and details that I know we're not like, I know it sounds ridiculous to say that, but it's like, it's really true with crypto. You know, like you need to be on the ball with this stuff, or else, like, again, you could be, you know, this could be the next amazing crypto, but if you timed it, you know, not properly, it could cost you, you know, just more time. But yeah, let's take a look at some of these numbers here.
Yeah, no, you do way better at that. Definitely subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff, comment. So if you're sacrificing more than $300,000, that's when you get a 1.75x bonus multiplier or more. So yeah, if you were sacrificing more than $300,000, then you would have been better off participating during the volume phase. So before February 21st. Obviously, the time curve tells you, well, earlier is way, way, way better. But just strictly speaking, volume bonding curve, if you were sacrificing more than $300,000, according to this PulseXlead.com, then you would want to participate during the volume phase. If you were someone sacrificing less than $300,000, which probably a lot of people, you know, then you actually get a slight little bump up of your multiplier. Like, for example, say someone was just going to sacrifice just $100,000, then they would have gotten a 1.5x multiplier. They're going to get a 1.75x for those last 4 days, February 21st to February 25th. So they would have been better off. They'd be better off actually waiting. And you can do the math, right? It's not too difficult to do the math, combining both the volume and the time bonding curve, which shows you that, you know, February 21st, 25th for the little guys basically brings the rate back a little better, back to, like, I can't remember which days, but it's let's see, let me try to remember. It goes something like, if you're a little guy, you're yeah, I'll try to find the charts and share them on Twitter or something.
Yeah,
It's like in my head, but
for sure. And what we're getting at here is, look, you know, you want to pay attention to a lot of these details and rules if you can, but at the end of the day, it may just be better, you know, if you want to just jump in, to just jump in as well. Sometimes overthinking can be too much of an issue, right? But at the same time, you do have to pay attention to a lot of these little details, and I think that we've done a really good job covering this. So maybe we talk more about the token itself now, and then maybe do some Q&A, and then we're approaching an hour here, so maybe that will be the stream for today.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I'm like so set on finding this chart. But yeah, like, definitely just do the math on how the volume, the time bonding curves work. But we can definitely talk a little bit on the actual the token. So PLSX is going to be so you want to talk about PLS or PLSX? Probably PulseX.
Let's just do PulseX. So we talked about Pulse before, and
Yeah.
maybe it's just, I think PulseX would be good. So yeah, fire away at them, and if you want to go back to the website and, you know, maybe read through some of the stuff there with them.
You're so much better at this social media thing than I am.
No, this is it's a good visual thing to have, right? Because we understand, you know, a lot of what is going to be happening and what we're investing in, but also too, it's like, it's very important. I'm just trying to think of somebody who's either new or has some questions for us, like, what is this? Why would I invest in it? And why would I listen to, you know, what we're discussing here, and like, how can it benefit them? And so, yeah, just tell us more about, you know, PulseX itself, what it's kind of designed to do, and why there's literally $1 billion worth of cryptocurrency that has been sacrificed already.
Right. So Pulse Chain is pretty easy to explain. So is PulseX. Pulse Chain is a fork of Ethereum, technically a little more a fork of Binance Smart Chain. Same idea, right? It's an EVM-based system. It's basically Ethereum. And when you have something like Ethereum, a layer one, a general purpose blockchain, you can build stuff on it, right? You can't really build on Bitcoin. Can you build on Ethereum? Yes. Can you build on Binance Smart Chain? Yes. Can you build on Pulse Chain? You will be able to. And one of the primary use cases of things that are built, like one of the most popular things that is built on Ethereum is Uniswap. People like trustless trading. People like swapping their coins without central entity, matching buyers to sellers. That whole centralized limit order book system got turned into a decentralized, trustless thing called Uniswap, where you have pools So you have pools of coins where people can trade in and out 24/7, no middleman, which is amazing. Amazing innovation, right? And someone was going to build it anyways. So Richard was like, all right, I guess it'll be me. I could probably do it better. And when you're building, it's interesting, right? Because Ethereum it didn't launch with Uniswap. Uniswap was built later. So that's kind of an interesting nuance that we're launching with a decentralized exchange already from the get-go. It's pretty cool. And that's what PulseX is. PulseX is going to be the premier decentralized exchange on the Pulse chain. And it's going to have the highest liquidity based on the design. They're going to, whenever the fork happens, you fork over pretty much everything. We're forking over the entire system state. So Uniswap V2 is coming over. Uniswap, I think technically V3 is coming over. V1's coming over. Like all of the protocols, all the contracts that exist on Ethereum will be duplicated over. And so all of these, they call them DEXs, right? Decentralized exchanges. Some people refer to them as automated market makers, AMMs, same thing. So all of these AMMs are going to exist over there. There's going to be a script, right? They call it a bot, but it's really a script that comes in and it's going to harvest a bunch of liquidity. It's going to mint PLS, basically buy up all these PRC20s on all these decentralized exchanges, and then use all of this liquidity and centralize it. I'll explain why that's actually a good thing, centralized liquidity. It's going to centralize it all onto this new premier, most liquid decentralized exchange on Pulse chain called PulseX. So that's kind of a short summary of what PulseX is. It's basically the Uniswap of Ethereum, or the Pancake Swap of Binance Smart Chain, or the Trader Joe's of Avalanche. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. But centralized liquidity, just let me touch on that. Sorry, real quick.
No, you're good. You're good.
If you guys understand what 1inch does, that is a liquidity aggregator to give you the best deal, basically. So if something like 1inch didn't exist, and let's say you just buy up a ton of HEX on Uniswap V2, let's say it's 18 cents, you pump it to 22 cents. Well, the V3 price didn't change. So someone's going to be like, oh, I see an arbitrage opportunity, whether it's probably bots, right? They go in and they buy up a bunch of cheap 18-cent HEX on Uniswap V3, sell it down on Uniswap V2 where it's 22 cents. So you're pumping this price on this side up. You're bringing this one down until they reach camera's over here until they reach the same level, and the arbitrage language opportunity is gone, and you basically equalize the prices, but you made an arbitrage bot rich during that process, and you didn't get the best deal possible because you pumped the price against yourself from the 18 to 22 cents. So maybe you got on average your HEX for like 19 or 20 cents. However, if you were to use something like 1inch.io, it distributes or order across all of the possible liquidity sources. So it basically buys up a little here, buys up a little here, buys up a little here. So you don't create that arbitrage opportunity. You get a lower cost basis, so you get a better deal. And that is effectively centralized liquidity. It centralizes all the liquidity and makes you the arbitrage bot. So that's why centralized liquidity is a good thing. And the opposite, which I think they call liquidity fractionation, isn't that good. So that's the reasoning behind sticking all of the liquidity, or the majority of it, centralizing it into PulseX.
No, I mean, it's a really good answer, and definitely a little bit more technical, to say the least. My head's spinning a little bit, man. So that was fantastic. But I wanted to ask you, why would people sacrifice for PulseX, right? Like, why would I give any sort of value of anything to this coin? What's the point of holding this PulseX token? What are some of the mechanics of it? And it is all on the website for people to read and go through. Myself and Gerardo have talked about it multiple times. We have many videos. There's lots of resources. But while I got you here, man, like, if I wanted to sacrifice for this on somebody brand new watching this, why would I do it? What would be the incentive? And then maybe we'll even share a little bit about what we do think will happen with this token moving forward, like price wise.
All right. So PulseX, ticker PLSX, you can hold it. And that has proven to be a very solid strategy for many, many cryptos that don't even do anything, just holding, right? Price appreciation is arguably one of the main value propositions of cryptocurrency and of many assets. So people seek, they like the mad gains. So you could hold the PLSX. Awesome. That's already a strong enough reason, in my opinion. Then what else can you do? Well, you can single asset stake it. So that means you can stick your PLX in a single asset yield pool, is what they call it, and you'll get this other token in return, which is your yield. Currently, it's been called an incentive token. There's not a name for it yet, but so you can hold it, you can stake it, right? Price appreciation or yield or both, like something like HEX is both. And what else? I believe PLSX holders will have voting rights to be able to vote in a DAO. And what that DAO will decide will be the yield rates on all of these liquidity pools that will exist inside PulseX. So something I didn't touch on was the actual exchange itself. PulseX will have yield farming. So it incentivizes people to put in their liquidity. It incentivizes people to bridge in a bunch of ERC20s or Ethereum and stick them in PulseX and really centralize that liquidity like we touched on. And let's say you provide liquidity on the I know it's just HEX, but we'll call it PHEX, on the PHEX and PLS pair. Well, if you stick liquidity in there, you get a share of PHEX and PLS, right? The fees that people pay to swap will basically go to those liquidity providers. And not only that, they'll also get this incentive token that we're talking about. So, and you can do that with PLSX too, right? So that's another use case. So you can hold it, you can stake it, or you can stick it in liquidity pools. And man, I was getting at something there.
No, I mean, this is great. Honestly, what I want to share really quickly is there are multiple different use cases for this token, right? I mean, you can do a lot of different things with it. And I think that right there, having utility is important. Now, is it end all be all? No, not really. I mean, as long as you have good enough utility, like Bitcoin, for example, what's its main utility? It's just store value, right? People just buy it and hold it, and it's, digital gold, right? That's its narrative. That's its thing. It's really good at one thing. That's good. With this token, it's going to be really interesting to see because there are so many different things that you can do with it. And so I think that that's a good thing. And a lot of things, I'm looking at with what I'm going to be doing with, if I was me getting some of these coins, it's a lot of different game theory. It's a lot of different thinking to go on. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this all develops. But I do like the fact that you could do something with this, right? It's not just like, a new coin, you buy it and you're like, well, now what, right? There's a lot of thinking that goes on with this. And I do appreciate you sharing that because there's a lot of different nuances, a lot of different stuff. And, I'm sure we'll be making content as more of this rolls out.
Totally. I remember what I was going to say too. So PulseX holders will have voting rights in the DAO to vote on the yield rates that these liquidity providers get. So I explained how liquidity providers will get yield in the tokens of the pair they're providing, as well as this new incentive token. But who decides like how much of that they get? It'll be the PLSX holders, which is another use case of it. The reason that voting right goes to them, again, always goes back to incentive alignment, because another piece of game theory here is that all the volume that goes through the PulseX decentralized exchange, a percentage of that could go to, well, it will go to an address which could buy and burn the PulseX token on the open market. Meaning, if that is the case, PulseX holders are incentivized to see a ton of volume, right? So that's why they get these voting rights, because ideally, or they're incentivized to see a ton of volume, and so they wouldn't be incentivized to give really good rates to like a coin that's just not going to bring volume, basically.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting, not to jump in here real quick, save the thought. Why I think this is so cool is because what's really happening here, the thought process is centralized exchanges like Coinbase, Binance. They're incentivized for you to trade all the time because they make tons of money off of your trading fees. And what PulseX is really doing is, we don't know for sure if it's going to happen or not, right? As Gerardo said, there's a potential chance that, yes, there's going to be a percentage, right? Just like these centralized exchanges, but instead of enriching, these centralized exchanges and all of those people lining their pockets, like the CEOs in the business, it's just going to be burned and gone forever, enriching the holders and the people to buy this token. Again, it's aligning these incentives because Richard knows what works with crypto. You want the price to appreciate in any asset You got to have more people buying and holding than selling. And if you can incentivize them multiple different ways to do this, the people, and then it's just like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It's kind of
Right.
like it goes green and then it goes more green, and then it goes more green, and then more people buy. And then it's like
Right.
it keeps doing that. And then eventually it'll correct, and like nothing obviously goes up forever. But I think it's a really important distinction to make here. And I really appreciate you bringing that up, because
Of course.
it's really, this is very innovative, right? This is something very different, because a lot of these exchanges, especially the centralized ones, they're incentivized for them. This is really giving back to the people who are going to bring value to this ecosystem and PulseX. And that is very important, because if there's nobody bringing any sort of monetary value here, well, then why use it, right? You can use Uniswap, PancakeSwap, you can do anything. There's a lot of other competitors, but where Pulse chain and PulseX can be different is if there's more volume, more liquidity, and you're incentivized to hold and be there, and it's a better user experience. That's what is going to really make this thing go. And it's going to be really interesting to see the execution. And I do think it will come, but yeah, I think I'm excited for it.
It's gonna be so good. Like, just every time I talk about it and have to like lay out all the aspects of it, explain it in depth, it just makes me more bullish on PulseX. Like,
Yeah.
it's gonna be good, I think. I think it's gonna be good.
Yeah, let's maybe fire away at a couple of questions here, and then we wrap it up.
Let's see. What do you think? What do you guys think? $1 PLSX in 5 years?
I mean, I'd have to look at the math a little bit deeper on
Right.
this, but that seems a little ambitious. But I mean,
That would be
anything
yeah.
can happen. See, when people ask a question like this, again, not to call this person out here, but it's like, you're looking at on the website, man, I got 30 million of these coins potentially that I sacrificed. If it only goes to $1, right?
Right. Right.
And yeah, it's okay to think that way, but a better way to be thinking is, okay, I sacrificed this. How can I continue to just generate more income to where I don't
Right.
even care if this hits $1, right? It's like I'll have so much abundance. You see, this is a cash flow mindset, right? Rich Dad Poor Dad, his book is all about multiple sources of income and cash flow. I think it's really important to take a look at PulseX as another just cash machine for you, right? If you can stake it and earn more of a DAO token, that's what you're looking for. And if the price appreciates, then you can really hit a home run. But what I want to share with people is, why not just own a bunch of different stuff and have tons of sources of income? This is why I love crypto, because I can own HEX, I can own Cake, I can own BNB. Any of these cryptos, you can stick them in centralized, in earning and yield. You can go to Anchor Protocol and earn 20% a year. I mean, think about that. If you just have all of these different things working for you over time, like, it's amazing how fast you can become a millionaire with crypto. Like, and hopefully that maybe helps with that question as well.
Yeah, I think so. And what would that be? $1? That would be a 10,000x from the sacrifice rate, where it's like 10,000 points per dollar, so 10,000x dollar. So we've seen coins do this. It's not unprecedented. And yeah, Hex did it in way less than 5 years. It's not even 3 years old. It did it in like 623 days, not even 2 years. So this is another coin launched by the same man who launched Hex, which did a 10,000x. And I bring this up in streams oftentimes, how I believe the second iteration is often better. So like, I'm sure Richard learned a lot from launching a coin. I'm sure there are things he's doing better, right? Like the whole sacrifice mechanic, that wasn't a thing for Hex. We did like this AA constant inflation for a year, and even touches on like, if there was anything it would have changed, might have been something like that. Just how, you saw the initial dip for Hex where people just piled in day one and then tapered off and had this like 80 something percent dip. So the whole sacrifice mechanic is pretty new. But yeah, second iteration, third iteration, I guess, because Pulse is technically a second project. So multiple iterations of launching cryptos in new different ways after learning it probably a ton from launching that first one. Has the track record of someone who's just been winning his whole life, basically. Very knowledgeable man. knows what he's doing, has a very, very skilled apt dev team. So I'm excited. I'm very, very bullish on PulseX, and arguably a little more than Pulse, maybe like just a little more. So yeah, I think we can end it there shortly because people seem pretty. They're not asking many questions. They're just kind of saying cool things.
Yeah, I mean, look, I really appreciate being back on, and you know, make
Anytime,
sure
man.
to smash the like button, click the subscribe button, and you know, hit that notification bell because Gerardo's stuff is incredible. Honestly, I don't know another
Thanks, bro.
Hexican doing as much in depth and is, you know, wicked smart as you are, man. Honestly, there's a lot of nuance and details, and there's a lot of things. I encourage people, if you're still watching, to rewatch this episode because there's so much to take in, right? You got to keep coming back to this stuff. It's repetition. What's the saying? Repetition is the motherhood of habit, right? And you got to really make this crypto thing a habit if you really want to be successful. You can't just, you know, part-time it. If you really want to, you know, get some incredible results, you got to spend the time at it. And, you know, we've been at this now for, you know, between the two of us doing streams for over a year and making content. Like you said, I make a video a day on YouTube. You know, that's my commitment, man. And it's a grind, but it helps. And, you know, it's fun. I enjoy doing it. I think it's just a good way to give back. And that's why, honestly, you know, Gerard, I'll have to have you on more often and, you know, plug some of your stuff in more of my videos if that's cool. And,
of course.
You know, make sure to give this guy a follow, obviously, and keep doing your research. But the content and look into Hex, I mean, there is nothing else like it. And that, to me, the community aspect of that, plus the information, I mean, it's just like, I mean, there's literally millions of dollars in the information on that website, as well as the content that you're putting out here. I mean,
it's a cool
literally,
way of framing it. Never thought of it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's really, really important. So I just want to say thanks again, man. I really appreciate it. And if there's any other final thoughts that you had here, final goodbyes, fire away.
Yeah, always a pleasure having you on, and thank you for educating my audience on, you know, things that I can't always provide. Like, that's the beauty of community and coming together and sharing each of our strengths. And yeah, a YouTube video a day, that's a grind. I know I could learn a lot of social media tips from you, business tips. Like, you're always coming in hot with the cool sayings, inspirational words. So thanks for coming on, man. And let's get that tweet storm at Richard so that you guys can stream together.
That'd be awesome, man. Appreciate that.
All right, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. See ya.
All right, peace.